Now we're going to play one of two songs. Let me see which song it's going to be. I'm going to go look backstage and we'll see what song we're playing. Hold on. Sorry, Christian. Just got to go back here.
Just let us know. We're listening.
Oh, this is, wait a minute. This is freaky. Okay. Guys, Plan B.
He's actually here?
Plan B, he's actually here. Play it quickly before he escapes.
He's
I did toy with the idea.
Dude, I knew that backfired the second I went backstage, and you saw me see you. I'm like, he's gonna make a break for it. See him on stage now. Trap him with your words. And when you didn't come out, I thought, man, I just got played. You're gone. You're backstage eating a sandwich. Just for those of you who don't know, Misha doesn't like to do his job on time or worry about the schedule so much. So. We have that to contend with every week.
I missed my VIP meet and greet, which was the first thing I was supposed to do today. And it really wasn't totally my fault. I had left my phone at the CVS. And
where?
At the CVS.
The drugstore?
Yeah, and I was desperately trying to find it for a long time. And then I realized I have no way to actually even text folks at Creation and tell them that I am not going to be able to make it in today because I'm looking for my phone. I didn't have your numbers.
No?
I need to memorize them.
Yeah.
You don't have an iPad with everything on it?
Oh, look, Mr. Fancy has a phone and an iPad. Wow, big spender.
Not all of us are directing money, you know.
Wow.
He actually has a person who has an iPad. You have a team of assistants. You could have done a number of things.
I could have talked to my assistant.
You could have turned to, that's true. Hervé, I've lost my iPad. What do I do?
Wait, what's my assistant's
name?
Hervé.
Makes sense to me.
I've never heard the name Hervé.
Hervé Villachez, tattoo, get out of town. You've heard the
Fantasy
name.
Island?
Don't embarrass yourself.
I thought... Okay.
At any rate, did you find your phone?
I did.
At the expense of the VIPs.
Yeah, but you know, they're just VIPs, so. Oh, the front row like turned icy just now.
Did you get a haircut?
I did. Yeah,
That's good.
Thanks for noticing. Yeah.
That's good, yeah. All right, we're gonna leave.
No, let's have idle chat for about 40 more minutes and then we'll take one question and call it a day. Ladies and gentlemen, Misha Collins.
Hi, guys. How are you? Glad to hear it. Very, very glad to hear it. I am excited to be here. This city is really... Is that you tapping on the microphone over there? This city is beautiful. I'm sorry to say that with a tone of surprise in my voice, but when people in other parts of the country think about Pittsburgh, they think, oh, that's not a great place, but it is a great place. It's actually really lovely. So those of you who live here, congratulations. Those of you who are visiting, congratulations, and congratulations to me for noticing it. How's everyone's weekend going so far? How many, this is what, our third year here? Yeah. How many people have been here all 3 years? That's amazing. So there's quite a lot of attrition. A lot of people don't make it back. It's good to see you old timers. Thanks for coming back and sticking with it. Yeah. All right, well, I'm trying to think if I have any stories for you, like recent stories that are exciting. My children continue to be thorns in my side. I tweeted about it a couple of days ago, but Mason, I think it was 2 nights ago, right around 3 a.m., they crawl into our bed. My children have this routine, which is we put them to bed at great personal sacrifice in their own bed. So we have to squeeze into, they have this like tiny little house that is definitely not big enough for a grown-up. So from about here down sticks off the bed for me, and I put them to bed, and usually I fall asleep there too. It's sort of contorted in a very uncomfortable position. And then eventually I extricate myself, come back into my beautiful grown-up bed, and then right as I'm falling asleep, they come into my bed. And usually, I think what's going on is like their body is waking them up because they have to pee. So then they come into our bed and then pee on us. And the night before I came here, I was like, West, can you he peed on us, and then he took off his pajamas and threw them on the floor, climbed back into the one dry spot on the bed. And I was like, West, can you at least get a towel or something so that this real estate isn't completely wasted? And he was like, no, you get it. So anyway, just as a parent, I feel like I've kind of figured it out. And Mason crawled into bed and she said, hey, Dad? I said, yeah, honey, yeah. This is really 3 o'clock in the morning. Do weasels eat people? No, honey. No. Do they eat little people? No, I think they eat some mice or berries or, I don't know. How do you know what they eat, Dad? Mason, can we talk about this after the sun rises, please? Yeah. So, anyway, that's sort of what nightlife is like at my house. It's very exciting. And yet, I'm still talking about this. And yet they're so adorable, they're so small, and they're not going to stay in your bed for long, hopefully. And so I want to relish the experience too. I mean, they have contests of who's the best cuddler, which is so lovely. Like, who's the best cuddler? I think I am, because I'm the softest. But they're very serious about their cuddling, which is pretty nice. All right, that's enough about that. It's not on point. It has nothing to do with Supernatural, so I apologize for wasting your time. What would you like to talk about?
I have no idea. No.
Oh, great. Perfect. That makes 2 of us.
Oh, I wasn't sure. My name came up and I was like, holy shit, what do I do?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
I know that feeling. It happened to me right backstage just now.
I'm gonna steal my son's question.
Oh, your son? How old is he?
12. He's right there. Say hi.
Right where? Oh, hi. We met earlier.
Yeah.
You have the Chuck shirt on, right? Yeah. Get that shit out of here.
So his question is, if there's any one character that you can bring back into the show, who would it be and why?
Well, now I have to say Chuck. Because I just threatened somebody wearing his attire. I don't know. There's so many characters that have been on the show that would be great to have back. I would love, I guess, to have Rob back. In spite of his performance, he's just such a great guy. And Rachel Miner, I think, would be really cool to bring back. I just think that would be super cool if we could find a way to do that. I would love to do that. Yeah, there's a lot of characters though. If you go on IMDb and you look at all of the guest stars and recurring guest stars on Supernatural, it's basically it's like the entire population of a major city. I mean, there are possibly thousands of people now. It's really kind of remarkable. So there are so many to choose from, but off the top of my head, those 2 come to mind.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was such a polite smattering of applause.
I was wondering what the biggest adjustment was from being an actor who is famous to coming into the Supernatural fandom that is such a huge family.
What? What are you talking about?
Before you joined Supernatural.
Well, I was not famous before I joined Supernatural, and arguably I'm borderline famous now, but so what, so, I mean, this show is what got me any kind of notoriety at all.
You were in charge.
Infamy. I was in charge?
Charmed.
I was like, you were in charge? I suppose, of my own little life. I was in charge. That is an astute observation. But here's the thing about my role on Charmed. That was basically my first job after getting to Los Angeles. I didn't know anything about what it was like to be on a TV set. I had no real training as an actor. I still don't. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how a set worked. I didn't know what continuity was. Continuity is when you have to like do the same thing at the same point in the scene. Like we do multiple takes in a scene. And I can't walk over to one side of the room in one take and then walk over to the other side of the room in another take, because when they try to edit it together, it'll look like that character is magically appearing and disappearing across the room. I didn't know that. Nobody tells you that before you get on Charmed. I also didn't know what a mark was. They put these little, you guys saw the tape ball that's made up of the marks that we put on the floor. It's very important that you stand on your mark, otherwise the person that's pulling focus on the camera can't get you in focus. I didn't know what a mark was, and someone was telling me to hit my mark, and I didn't know who my mark was and why I was supposed to be hitting him. I was so out of water. It was really remarkable when I did that episode of Charmed. I just had no idea what was going on. Add to all of that, I didn't know how to act or anything like that, and I couldn't remember my lines. So that really made it a very awkward experience for everybody involved. Especially because the character was supposed to be recurring. And if you'll notice, I only did one episode of Charmed. So I would definitely take issue with the characterization of me as being famous at that point. I think maybe around the Charmed set, I was well known as the recurring guy who only did one episode. But yeah, so maybe can you rephrase the question?
Oh, just from being in the public eye versus being hugely known. What was the biggest adjustment for you? Like to walk out on the street and everybody know who you are?
You mean from being totally unknown? I think I'm getting where you're going. Well, we just had our adventure, now they call it meet and greet. If adventure is going to get some nachos, that was an adventure. But we were discussing this just now because I'm walking along and sort of in proximity to the convention. There are a lot of fans here, and people go they say things like, "Oh my God, look, get off your phone, it's Misha." And someone in the group said, "What's that like?" And I said, here's the weird thing. After it happens 3 or 4 times, then you start thinking, oh yeah, this is totally normal. Of course they're doing that. So yeah, I went from, I think, being a relatively well-balanced and modest person to having a totally overblown ego.
It's a good way to be.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm nervous. So over the years of doing all these conventions and everything, we've heard a lot of really amazing stories that you've told about your life and your experiences, and I'm just curious.
You mean lies?
If you want to call it that.
Uh-huh.
I'm just curious if you ever considered writing your own autobiography and putting it all down in paper.
Not really. No. I feel like an autobiography is something that's really best done by a seasoned writer, and I don't feel like I quite fall into that category. I also think that that there's so much hubris in that. Like writing a biography about yourself is like saying, "Hey guys, hey world, you should really know about me," which is a tough pill to swallow. But if you know any good ghostwriters who you could hook me up with. No, but I am working on a family cookbook right now, which I think is going to be very good, with HarperCollins as our publisher, and that's going to come out like around Father's Day next year, and it's going to be not at all autobiographical, so it's kind of close. And then I'm toying with the idea of like sort of like a weird another book. that might have some poetry because I've written a fair amount of poetry, and it might have some sort of I don't really quite know what it would be, but like a mashup of different things that sort of serve as a workbook for creating art or being creative or something like that. So that I guess has its own hubris built into it, but it's something that I am working on. Yeah.
I'd read it.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry for that. I went to this dinner party. I met this couple. Vicky and I met this couple at like a cocktail party. And the husband had gone to our college, University of Chicago, and so we had this like little connection. And then we talked, and we're like, we just moved to LA, and we're like, wait, these people are really great. We really like them. And then a couple of weeks later, they invited us over for dinner, and we went over for dinner, and we had this great, like beautiful Lebanese feast. And they brought a couple of their friends. They were both professors. They brought a couple of their professor friends, one of whom was a professor of literature. And we started, getting to know each other and asking questions, and somehow it came up that I was submitting some poems to be published at that moment. And the professor of literature very astutely asked, why would anyone want to read your poetry? And I wanted to kill him. And I immediately hated this man so much. And we're now still very close friends with that original couple. But I keep trying to get them to bring that guy over for dinner because I just want to tear him to pieces. Can you imagine somebody who is a teacher of literature saying that to somebody? I mean, it's true, what he said, but still, you don't say that. It's not your turn, so I'm not going to look at you. Hi.
Hi. My question is a hypothetical because I don't want the fans to get mad at me.
What would they get mad at you about if you ask the non-hypothetical question? And then this will be between us, and then you can ask the hypothetical question.
Sure. If it's the last episode of the last season...
Wait, this is your hypothetical question?
Yes.
It's not the other question that the fans would get mad at you about.
It's the same.
Oh, okay.
I just say hypothetical so
you were just getting some cover for yourself. I got it.
It's the last season, it's the last episode, it's the last scene, and you get to take any prop home you want. What are you taking home, and what does it mean to you?
I probably would take, I'd take Jensen home. I feel like... he's a great prop, and also handy around the house. So, wouldn't that be great if there was some sort of loophole where like someone's like, you can take anything you want. I'm like, all right, I'll take him. And they're like, shit, I shouldn't have said anything. It's fair is fair. We did say it. I mean, I would love to take all of my trench coats and some angel blades. Those feel like they have a personal. What's that?
Isn't there like only like 2
No, there's like 50 of them. There's like a whole warehouse full of Castiel trench coats, because every time I get shot or stabbed or something, that trench coat has to be gotten rid of. I mean, the Impala would be a great thing to be
You
able
have
to
to
take.
fight Jensen for that part.
But Jensen would kill me, so that wouldn't work. Jensen is getting the Impala, unfortunately. He's already he laid claim on that, I think, season 1. I don't know. I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, I've already stolen quite a few props. I have a small collection of things that I thought were cool from set that I figured I could get away with taking. Obviously don't put that portion of the video that you're recording on the internet. Yeah, what would you take?
I would take John's journal, because that is where it all began.
That's a good idea. I should do that. I have some busty Asian beauties magazines. Pretty great. What's also great about those, and what you might not know, is I had a scene in a convenience store, and I don't remember what was going on. I don't remember anything with it. Okay, nerd. I was looking for one for Dean because he was mad at me about what? Yeah, I was trying to make up gifts for Dean, and one of the things I bought at the convenience store was Busty Asian Beauty's porn magazine, and I opened it up, and what they do, for something like that, is they print the fake cover, because that magazine, I've looked, it's not really in print. But they create a fake cover and then they put it over a National Geographic or something, right? And I opened it up and they had put it over a Barely Legal magazine, which was not National Geographic. And it was very surprising. Very surprising to me. Another thing that we do on set all the time is, when they're looking on the computer and the camera is over the back of the computer onto the face of the actor, what's on that screen sometimes has to be illuminated. It has to be an actual image so that you can see the light flickering on the face of the actor. And sometimes they will put some really graphic stuff on the screen that you have to muscle your way through, pretending to be looking for the coordinates of the perp. And in fact, you're looking at the most enormous... Anyway. But anyway, thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Good question. Hi.
Hi. So the I'm Alive campaign this year, the theme is embrace your superpower. What would you say that your real life superpower would be?
Wonderful question. I am known in my circle of friends as a pathological optimist. I'm the one that always says it's everything, we're gonna figure out a way to work everything out. And that's actually not always true, but that attitude for me has been something that a lot of good things have come from. My ability to sort of see the good in things. And by the way, I get very dark at times too. It's not like a constant, but I can tend to be quite optimistic. So I would say that is my superpower. I saw somebody wearing a t-shirt earlier today that said, "Not all superheroes wear capes." And I love that. I think that's really a lovely sentiment. I'm not sure quite what it means, but I think that it kind of means that everybody has something, hidden inside them that makes them a superhero in their own right. And I think that's true. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. What's your superpower?
Oh gosh.
Can you see through clothing?
Yeah. Along the not all superheroes wear capes. I'm a social worker, so there's a saying that a social worker is a superhero without a cape. So I really like working with kids and in the mental health field, and what you guys do is just amazing. So.
Well, thank you for devoting your entire career to that. We get to make the appearance of being helpful by doing something for, 2 days and then, look at dick pics for the rest of the year. So what you're doing is a real superhero move, and thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Misha.
Hi.
My name's Carolyn,
Hi,
and
Carolyn.
my question is, you do a lot of amazing charity work. What have you been able to include your kids in? Like, what was your favorite thing that you got to include them in?
Well, we have, I think, excuse me, we've been making a concerted effort in our family to brainwash the kids. And one of the things we tell them is like, our family is kind of like known for being nice to people. So when you guys go out, to the playground and stuff, try not to bite the other kids like you did last time. But we also make a concerted effort to, so we're just I think trying to indoctrinate them with the idea that you can think about other people who are less fortunate and be thoughtful about people in general. And one of the things that we do is we often go to the park, but on the way to the park there's this drop-in center, which sidebar we built a little sort of shade structure for, and the kids actually came and helped work on that, and that was really cool. But we walk past through this crowded sidewalk where homeless people congregate all day long, and they have shopping carts, and some people are sleeping on the ground, and it smells kind of like urine and alcohol, and it's I think a lot of people probably cross the other side of the street to go around this, but we always make a point of walking right through it so that the kids just sort of get that exposure and they see that these are human beings who eventually, we've come to the point where we're waving to each other and, recognize one another's faces. And I did this scavenger hunt for West's birthday. We had started finding weird things. We live in an old house and we'd started finding some weird things. And I told my kids, because I think telling the truth is important, that it was pirate's treasure. And they believed it 100%, so much so that I started leaving old tea-stained notes around the house, and then they would discover things. We found this box of diamonds in the attic. The diamonds were about as big as apples. And I was like, this could be worth millions, guys, millions. Don't tell anybody about it. We're loaded now. And they're plastic. But anyway, so for his birthday, he wanted to do a scavenger hunt, and he invited most of the kids in his class on a bike ride scavenger hunt. So we went sort of over, because one of the notes had said, you will find more treasures hidden all around this town. And so he's like, we gotta go look all around the town. So we went, we looked, we found a bunch, we ended up at this box of treasures. Thank you, you can tell that I'm so dry that my lips are sticking to my teeth. Thank you. It must have gotten really bad. So we got the treasures, and we started, there was about 15 kids, we started dispersing the treasures to all the kids, and my son stopped the process, just a couple of trinkets in per kid. And I was like, dude, we got all this shit to give away, man. You're killing the vibe. And he said, no, this stuff is very valuable. He held one thing up and asked me, Dad, do you think you could buy a house with this? And I was like, oh, definitely. And he was like, well, great. Let's bring all of this stuff to the homeless. And I was like, oh, shit. So it was a very sweet moment and very disappointing, of course, for all the other kids in the class who almost got nothing out of the whole thing. But then we went to the homeless drop-in center, and I told the kids to stay in the minivan, and I got out and I found a group of 4 people. And I said, excuse me, could you do me a favor? My kids are in the car. They think this is real pirate's treasure. Can you pretend to be super, super excited when you open it? Because I was my heart was pounding the whole way over there. I'm like, how am I going to give plastic garbage to people? Here you go, homeless person, enjoy that. Worthless bag of plastic trinkets. So I was like, I actually did put some real money underneath the plastic trinkets, so you're not getting nothing. And they opened it up. I got back in the van, they opened it up, and they were so amazing. They were just like, and they started running it around and showing it to everyone else, and they were so excited looking, and the kid, The kids were so excited, and then at the end of the day, West said that his favorite part of the whole birthday was giving the trinkets to the homeless. So that was my highlight, I think.
Thank you. They're so fortunate to have you as a dad.
They wouldn't say that, but thank you.
Hi. So this season you briefly got to play another version of Castiel, and I just wondered what guided your interpretation of that AU cast.
First of all, I'm sorry. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know. I have now subsequently been able to find some weird rationale for it. But at the time, there really was no excuse. The seed was planted because the wardrobe was like this SS officer wardrobe. And so I was like, well, that's perfect. I'll give a pseudo-German accent to this character. I didn't want to do a real German accent because I felt like that would be a little too on the nose and possibly somehow offensive or more offensive. Ironically, of course, doing a almost German accent just makes it look like you can't do a German accent. I would characterize it as a sort of a bit of a train wreck, but I kind of enjoyed it nonetheless. I have one sort of technical rationale for it, which was when you see, and we've now done it several times on Supernatural, where you have two different characters who are played by the same actor in a scene talking to one another. And I think that those tend to work best when the characters are very clearly demarcated somehow, where there's no confusion as to which one is talking at a given moment. So I sort of decided to make it a little bit distinctive. But then, of course, watching what everyone else chose to do with their alternate universe characters, make them very similar to themselves or their original characters, really stuck out like a sore thumb. So again, my apologies. But you could back into it, Cass in alternate universe, he was so badly tortured that he was severely damaged, and it caused weird facial tics and a German accent. Okay, all right, fair. You have a good point. Maybe it's not so easy to rationalize. You win this round. Why? What prompted you to ask that question?
I wasn't going to mention the accent, but it was definitely part of why I wanted to ask.
I've been encouraging, so Jensen obviously has a different character to play for the coming season. And I've been encouraging him to pick up a sort of weird, distorted accent of some sort to take a little bit of the heat off of me. So
I think it would work with the outfit he picked at the end.
I do too. I think he could be an Indian-Russian Michael Dean, I think it would really work. I think the audience would eat it up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
First of all, I just wanted to say that my best friend Quinn and I, we love Castiel on the show.
Why, thank you very much. Yeah. Woo!
And I was just curious, first of all, what's your favorite moment on the set? And second of all, what's the best thing that's ever happened to you at a convention?
Oh my God. That's two bests of bests. I had a really cool experience not too long ago at a convention where someone asked me if you could meet anyone, living, who would it be? And I mentioned the person that I would love to meet, and that guy called me 2 days later. That was pretty awesome. You forget that, this fandom is they talk about everything, and, somebody gets mentioned in that context, and they're like, so-and-so, Misha wants to meet you. Which I would never have occurred to me to just reach out and say that. Anyway, that was very cool. It was Bob Garfield, a radio personality whom almost none of you know. Yeah! Were you at that other convention where I said that? Isn't he great? He's okay. So that was cool. Best experience on set?
Yeah.
Trying to think of a good one. I'm trying to think of any positive experience. Pizza Man. I don't, not, what? I'm not supposed to talk about that experience? That's right. Thanks for saving me. Yes, I'm sorry. There were too many bodily fluids exchanged for me to be able to talk about it. No, that's disgusting. I'm missing the thread, the lifeline that you're trying to throw me here. She's like, never mind, don't say that, stop. I can tell you this, I'm not coming up with a good example right now, but we have a lot of, we have so many times on the set where we're running up the overtime clock because we're just laughing our asses off. It happens all the time. It's a big part of why I think so many people, cast and crew included, have stayed on the show for as long as they have. We just have a great time on set all the time, unless they're torturing me, and then we don't. But yeah, I mean, I think probably Richard has talked about it, but that scene where we tumble out of the rift and into Apocalypse World, and Rich's face lands in my crotch. It was not a stunt, let me just tell you that. It was a very simple action that we had to do. And no, that was not an accident. That was planned actually weeks in advance. The director, Phil Segrisha, came up to me while I was working on the previous episode, and he said, Misha, I have an idea for that scene where we tumble out of the rift. And I was like, but I hadn't read the script. And I was like, yeah, I love that scene. And he said, you know, I think it'd be funny if Rich sort of lands with his face in your crotch. Would you be okay with that? And I was like, that's what we do in between setups anyway. But it was, I think, hilarious that he felt like he had to check with us to see if we were okay with it. Like, well, of course we're okay with it. But then when we did the rehearsal, it's that little scene, that little portion of a scene, took on really enormous. That's not what I mean. It spiraled, and it became a much more acrobatic and much more involved, multi-person, not just the two of us were involved in the rehearsal, and it went on it had to have been 45 minutes. I mean, Warner Brothers is like spending good money to pay people for us, like just laughing our asses off and having fun. Anyway. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, okay, so I just want to say I love you so much, and my friends and I call you Mishi Mushi.
Yeah, because Misha is like, it's a little too masculine, so. Way to soften that up a little, thank you.
Anyway, I was wondering, what's the most bizarre experience that you've ever had on set with like Jensen and Jared?
I would say the most bizarre experience I ever had was when Jensen came into my trailer and apologized. We had this, what's that? What? He just said, I'm sorry. So we had this day where they were just, it worked its way into the gag reel, I think it was season 9, but we had this day where they were just, Jared and Jensen, for some reason, were relentless. And they were just harassing me to no end and not letting me get a single line out. They were just, whenever the camera was on me and not on them, they would be doing the most ridiculous things. Like pulling ear hair out of the camera operator's ear. Or doing, Jared does this thing which he thinks is so funny, and I think it's funny too, unfortunately. He gets his, he takes his arm out of his sleeve, but then puts the sleeve in his pocket, so it looks like he's just standing there, and then works his arm down his pants, and then his finger out his zipper. And so we'll be shooting a take, and then all of a sudden something will emerge. And at some point, I think it was maybe end of season 4, beginning of season 5, up until that point, I was like, I have to not laugh. And at that point, I decided, you know what? I'm not gonna try to not laugh anymore. I'm just gonna laugh when they're doing weird things, and that's gonna be how it goes from here on out, and that is how it goes. I don't try to not laugh. But they were just relentless, they didn't stop. And we were on location, and they were being so ridiculous that people drove over from the studio, people who work in the office drove over to watch. And it got to the point where I was clearly actually getting a little frustrated, like it was hours and it was a little too much. And Robin, our props girl, said to Jared and Jensen, I think you've crossed the line, guys, you've gone too far. And then Jensen apologized. That was the weirdest thing that ever happened to me on set. He didn't even apologize the next day. He stopped short of saying it'll never happen again. But yeah, thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. I wanted to ask, we know from our friendly neighborhood cosmic entity that angels all go to the empty, and we know that Chuck has no power in the empty. So every time he broadcasts back, what happened? Did he pull one over on the empty, or are there multiple versions of Cass out there sleeping?
Sorry, I think her mic is dead. I can't hear anything that she's... Well, I'll have to get back to your question when your mic is working. I'm sorry, go sit down. Thank you. I mean, you could ask, why would you ask that? Why did alternate universe Cass have a German accent? I mean, you can't pull these threads, which is, by the way, something we say on set all the time. I'll be like, guys, does this make sense? And they'll be like, don't pull the thread. Just leave it, let it go. Man, that's such a bummer. Do you have an idea?
I actually think there's different versions of Cass. Each time he dies, he goes to the empty, and then Chuck recreates his body and his memories and everything, brings him back that way, so there's actually dozens of
That's
Casses
right,
out
you
there.
are correct. That is right. At this point, Cass is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. That's why he's starting to look kind of worn.
Yeah, that would be a good episode, just have an army of Casses.
Yep. Would be tiring though, to shoot, if you think about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Do you think that when Cass came back from the empty, similar vein, that he was more like season 4 Cass?
Yes.
I didn't know it was my turn. Hi.
You still there? Was that satisfying for you?
Yes.
Did you say yes?
Yes.
Yeah, tit for tat, huh? Two can play this game. It was actually in the script. It said, he's more like season 4 Cass. Which is sort of like code for Misha, stop doing that weird shit you've been doing. Go back to doing what we cast you as. Yeah, good talk. Hi.
Okay, hi. So my question for you is, as an actor, how do you play characters that are completely opposite of you, like rapping Canadian serial killers?
Thank you, by the way, for not thinking of me as a serial killer. That is very generous of you. That was a weird Please, those of you who haven't watched this movie, don't watch it. It's terrible. I say that and then people go watch it. But I did this movie. No, it's not. So I did this movie.
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
It's awful, yeah. So I did this awful movie, and it was a train wreck. We actually ended up, the director got fired because he was actually just a creepy, lecherous perv weirdo. And then he threatened to come and shoot up the set, so we had to get a restraining order against the director. It was a really wonderful experience. But that was an interesting role for me. I think they cast me partly because I kind of looked like the guy. He was a real life character. He was Canada's sort of most famous serial killer. Excuse me. And they cast me, and I was like, I think that they totally screwed up here. Like, I can't do this at all. This is not me at all. And then I got into like working on the character and really getting into the script and doing research and listening to his voice. There were these recordings of his voice. And I started having his dreams. So I was dreaming as if I were Paul Bernardo, having his dreams. And it was totally terrifying. And then, you know, we ended up shooting some of these scenes, like these like murder scenes. And I felt myself like getting a rush from it. And it was this fascinating glimpse into the human psyche, I think. It makes me, my experience doing that, first of all, I was literally afraid that I had damaged myself in the process, which I probably did. But it made me think about this question that has always plagued me, like how does, you know, like the Rwandan genocide, how do neighbors suddenly take up machetes against one another? Like a switch has to flip for you to go from being in civil society with someone to suddenly being, you know, on a murderous warpath, or frankly, like a soldier on a battlefield. Like there's a switch that can get flipped where all of a sudden you're okay killing people. And I've always wondered, like, how does that happen? And I felt like doing that weird movie, that terrible movie, I got a glimpse into what that's like. I mean, just a little one, but it sort of made me think that there's dark aspects of humanity that are weirdly dormant in us, but that can somehow be turned on and turn us into killing machines. So it was kind of interesting, even though it was a shitty movie.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. I was just wondering.
Sorry. One other thing. I had this other really weird experience. There was one with that movie. There was this one woman who was in her early 30s by the time that movie came out, who was also one of the victims. She was the one victim that got away, and in all of the court records, she's referred to as Jane Doe. And the experience completely destroyed her. Like, she just had, you know, a very, very difficult life after that. But I was driving on the 5 freeway in California in the middle of nowhere. My cell phone rang, and I answered, and it was Jane Doe. And she had seen the movie, and for some reason, she thought it might be somehow cathartic for her to talk to me. And so I pulled over to the side of the freeway and just talked to her. Sorry, speak of the devil, I've got a call coming in. It's my wife, she hung up. I think she wanted to get, Hello? Hi, how are you? Good. You're on speakerphone and I'm on stage. What's that? Did you call me an asshole? All right, she hung up again. I love you. You're on speakerphone. You asshole. Anyway, that was just such a surreal moment to be sitting there on the shoulder of the freeway talking to somebody about her experience having been a victim of this guy. I don't know why I'm sharing that with you. Hi.
Hi again. I just want to know what inspired you to recite poetry on Snapchat and if you're going to continue that.
I don't know. I mean, part of it was, these platforms that keep cropping up, and what are you gonna do the same thing on all of them? It feels a little boring, and I do love poetry, and so I thought, what do the kids of today, because that's what Snapchat is, right? What do the kids of today really want? Obviously, some guy in his middle age reading poems to them on Snapchat. So it was more, just knowing my market that led me to do that. I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you. But yes, I will continue to do it. Are people still using Snapchat? Really?
Yeah.
Is it waning? It is waning. I'm getting mixed messages here.
Not really.
For some of you it is, and for some of you it isn't.
Yeah.
All right, so I will do more poems on Snapchat because you asked so nicely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Brightens my day.
You actually didn't ask. You were just wondering if I was still going to be doing it. Maybe you were hoping the answer was no. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi.
So we all know you're Jensen and Jared's favorite target for anything. So what do you think the worst thing?
Alex might be,
Yeah.
he might be, there's something about the fresh meat aspect. I think
Sure, that you've been here longer.
Yeah,
There's
I
more
think that
history.
maybe I'm a little, it's not fun for them anymore because they know how easy of a target I am. I don't know. He's pretty easy too though. It's kind of fun.
So
Not being the target. It's awesome.
I'm assuming they still did stuff to you this year. So what do you think the worst thing they did to you was?
This year?
Like season 13 filming.
This year wasn't that bad. I mean, there's definitely a worst moment for sure. And it was the very first scene I filmed. And it was very nicely captured on the gag reel. We just saw that, they send the gag reel to us as a formality. We have to approve it as if we're ever gonna say, I don't want you to put that thing in there, maybe it looks stupid. So we always, of course, approve it, but it has this one scene where Castiel is, by the way, the beginning of the season was very challenging for me to shoot. I had about 3 days of shooting in the first 7 weeks, and no lines. So Castiel is dead on the table, and Dean, teary-eyed yet still trying to flex his muscles, draws the sheet over my dead face. It's a somber moment. And I, as the actor under the sheet, have one job, which is to try to hold my breath so it doesn't look like the sheet is moving up and down. And then Dean stalks around the table, filled with raw emotion, still trying to flex his muscles. And then he slaps me in the balls. And of course, I knew something was gonna happen, and it's a very terrifying thing because I'm deprived of the sense of sight at that moment. I can't see what's happening, except for I can hear this creaking, lurking, flexing, being stalking right next to the table, and I know something is coming, but I don't know what it is, and I'm just trying to hold my breath, and then wham, and I shot up like... The worst part about that, for me, was that was the first take. And so we had to do multiple takes after that where my heart was just pounding. I was like, I try to lie under the sheet like, why is the corpse like...
Thank you. I'm sorry
Thank you.
about that.
Thank you for making me relive that.
So when Cass has to get an ingredient for the spell to open the rift, and he ends up married to the queen or whatever.
Yes.
How does he travel to that area since he doesn't have his wings? How did he get there?
Your mic is very hard. Sorry, it must be interference or something. He has a plane, that's right. I don't know. That's right, he's back from like Israel or something? Yeah. Right? I'm back from Israel. Syria, very quickly. No sweat, no signs of jet lag. Do you have an idea? I don't know. This feels like you guys are really trying to poke a lot of holes in things today. What is the answer? Correct answer is what?
I don't know. He could have like stolen a military transport or something.
Yeah, that is what he did. That is precisely what Cass did. He learned to fly a long-range bomber, and he went to Syria and picked it up. He flew into hostile airspace with Russian anti-aircraft missiles being shot up at the ground from him, Assad's forces firing their rifles at the plane. He landed on a slightly bombed out airfield and then used Syrian Uber to get That is what happened. It was in the script, but they cut that part out. Yeah. Thanks for noticing that.
Hi, Misha. I love
Hi.
you. So, just kind of wondering.
I'm sorry, I'm married to the queen, so.
It's okay. So, what little we know about your life, like, you didn't start off wanting to be an actor. So what made you really commit and decide you're going to change everything and devote your life to acting?
Well, I will tell you a true story, if you don't mind. So I thought that I was going to go into politics, and I interned at the White House, and I was working at NPR, and I was on this track, and then I didn't really like what I saw there, and I felt like there's no way I'm going to fit into this world. There's too much compromise of integrity that goes into this, and so I moved to Hollywood. But I actually kind of had this weird long-range plan, which was to maybe if I can get get a little bit of notoriety or something, maybe I can use that to affect change instead of being elected city council somewhere. So that was my plan when I went out to Hollywood with my pathological optimism, and I thought I would be I looked on the screen and I saw Keanu Reeves, and I was like, if he can do it, anybody can. This has got to be a cakewalk. And then I was and I thought I gave myself 5 years. Give yourself 5 years. If you're not super famous within 5 years, then do something real. And then 5 years passed, and then 10 years passed, and then I was like, Jesus, this is getting embarrassing. And I had this turning point. I actually think it sort of hinged on starting to meditate, where I realized that the process of acting actually could be a real and creatively fulfilling enterprise. But it took me a really long time to come to that, because when I started, it was like this weird means to an end. And then I found the creatively fulfilling aspects of it along the way. And that is why I stuck with it. And now, I've given up on having any creative integrity at all, but I get to come and see you people, so it's all worth it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi guys.
Hey Mitch.
How are you?
Good, man. Why don't you take one last question while we're standing around?
Oh yeah, let's do that. Yes.
I'm so
Yes. I was
excited.
hoping you were going to get your question in.
Hi, my name is Jen. I'm from Cleveland.
Hi, Jen from Cleveland.
I'm really excited that you're coming to Cleveland for the Giving Back tour.
Oh, yes.
And you were in Cleveland when you did the tour through Ohio when you were supporting Hillary Clinton right before the election.
Yep.
And my question is, you had mentioned during that tour in Cleveland that Mason was voting or supporting Trump.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And so I was wondering if you were able ever to persuade her to the other side.
I forgot about that. So Mason, my daughter, we were watching the Republican primary debates, and we don't let the kids watch TV really at all. So when we turned on the Republican primary debates, they were rapt. They were so excited to be watching TV. And Mason, I was like, Mason, which one do you like? And she was like, I like that one. And it was Donald Trump. And And then she had another great Trump moment not too long ago where Vicky got angry at me, which never happens. She just called me an asshole on speakerphone. So she got a little frustrated with me, and she very earnestly said, "You are exactly like Donald Trump."
Your wife said that, or Mason?
Vicky said that to me.
Vicky?
Yeah. Which I guess she meant like I was kind of presidential. I don't know. So. Yeah. And then Mason, for some reason, came to my aid and said, "No, Mom, you're being like Trump." And I was like, "Yeah, you tell her." And then Wes and Mason started running around the house yelling, "Mama Trump, Mama Trump." And it was so great, and still they do it sometimes. They call her Mama Trump sometimes, and it really gets under her skin, but it's so great. I love it.
You know what I'm looking forward to? In about 6 hours on Redbubble, the cartoon drawings of Vicky with the Mama Trump on her t-shirts. That'll be great. By the way,
that will be there too.
We should clarify one thing. I think the giving back to her, they misprinted it on the site. It's giving back rubs, isn't it? It's a massage trade. It's the whole idea.
That's right.
It's not really charitable at all. It's just about people relaxing and getting rub downs. That's the whole thing.
You're gonna suddenly the creation website is flooded with people trying to get refunds.
I've got a Massage Collins. I'm out. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of Pittsburgh, Misha Collins.
He's our angel, go and save me tonight. He's our angel, go and make it alright.
All right. That's you know, there's no more crap happening on stage. Boo, now it's all